For that, I'd like to get Steve back.
Thank you, Stephen. Ooh. That wasn't supposed to happen. There we go. That's much better. So I was lucky enough to spend some time over at the University of Lyon 2 last year in France. Lyon has 3 universities. Lyon 2 is the creative university. And they were sharing with me the project that they spent the last 18 months working on building a dedicated portal to allow academic and student-created content to be shared nearly instantaneously. So this is a video that they created, so I'd like to share that with you now. And it's got beautiful, funky French music that's going to start. There you go. So this was created as a response to the students bringing the devices on campus, as Stephen talked about. The University of Lyon created a portal where students accessed everything. So had social data, links through to Blackboard so they could actually their content. And you could see through there they used iTunes and iTunes U, that we'll talk about later, as a content distribution engine. Within 7 minutes of a lecture being finished at the University of Lyon, the content was available for the students to download on their Mac or PC or on their iPhone. Students rated that as acceptable. 7 minutes. Within 12 hours, a standard definition version was available, 24 hours, high definition version available. They were very keen to move the content to the students as quickly as possible. And now we're seeing this content be created in different areas, seminar rooms, and a lot of work on practicum content. So off campus that is brought back onto campus and distributed or submitted digitally and available within 7 minutes. My clicker is doing that. So we're absolutely fascinated to know how you guys are using podcasting. So if you could go to the mobile learning app and answer those questions, and I get to say, Maestro, please. This again is a multiple choice question. Remember, it takes about 7 seconds for the question to populate, so some of you might have to push the little arrow next to the word. Of course, the people who say they're not into podcasting have to stay behind afterwards, so they laughed like I was joking. The one fascinating thing about doing this around the country is the total difference in data. Compared to Adelaide and Perth, there was a lot higher number of podcast producers only. Really interesting. Thank you, Maestro. Terry, if you could go back to the big screen, thank you. So we're seeing this similar research in Australia. So QUT, just around the corner, have been conducting some research on how podcasting is used by students. And for me, this is the absolute killer. Students are downloading the content in a just-in-time manner to revise for exams. It's hardly a surprise to any of us. And podcasting is a very passive medium. You download the content, access it, and you don't have any way of interacting back to it. But we're starting to see some real academic research conducted on whether this is helping. So the State University of New York conducted a control study. Students who attended the lecture only, students attended the lecture and downloaded the podcast as a revision tool. I found a statistically significant difference. And we're seeing some anecdotal research coming out of UWA, the home of Lectopia, indicating that the attendance in lectures is actually on the increase. Students are attending the lectures because they can focus on the face-to-face, as Stephen was talking about, and know that there'll be a podcast available for them later. The iPhone and the iPod Touch, however, gives us some really good content on the go creation options. As the GPS device is in there, we can take a picture from Auckland, say, and have exactly the same data mapped to where we were in Queensland. So we don't have to do any of this content. It's on the field, we can take the data and have it stored. We can use voice recording tools to actually record what we saw in the field. But I'd like to demo one of the apps that I'm using mainly to do this. And I should have told you, my background is a research psychologist. So I used to spend an awful lot of time doing clinical diagnosis of patients. I'd like to share with you a little app that's free that I've been using for this sort of stuff. Now, thank you. Stephen talked about the difference between the iPhone and the iPod Touch, and he mentioned the phone calls was one of the key differences. The other difference is the iPhone has a built-in microphone. If you buy the iPhone headphones and plug them into an iPod Touch, it then has a built-in microphone. So for about $29, you can add that. Now, I'm not in sales, so it's probably like not $29, but it's not more than $29. So this little app is called Audio Boo that will then turn your iPod Touch into a field recording device. So recently, I've been forced to work with someone with delusions of grandeur, and I suspect is a megalomaniac. Audio Boo is a free tool that has a pile of social networking components into it. So I'm on 3G, so it's a little slower than normal. But this has gone out to all of the other booers in the world. And just when you thought you had enough social networking, here comes another one. But it has the best compression algorithm for audio I've ever seen. So I'm going to really quickly record a diagnosis. Patient showing extreme signs of delusion. Keeps talking constantly on the screen. That one didn't seem to capture all that I wanted it to do, so let me just start that one again. And that's okay. We'll get there eventually. Here we go, record. My little audio levels weren't working quite as I liked. So let's try this one again. Okay, let's cross our fingers. There we go. We had a little spike. So what I can do is record that audio and play that content back, which is wonderful. I can publish it straight out to the social networking site. I can add the built-in photos, so with all of that GPS data that's in there, straight away. And of course, if I tag the photo within the other applications, that content comes through here. I can put text in there, and I can use my tagging. Done that, and click upload. Awesome. So while that uploads, Terry, if you could flip back slides for me. Sorry. There we go. Thank you. When I was talking about the Audio Boo social networking, this is what it looks like. So you have a whole pile of content that's available so you can follow people and see what content they're going. It's going to be one of those days. My iPod just started to play. That's the Pipettes, if anyone's interested. Great band in New York. It gets really interesting because as that content's uploaded, it now becomes part of the iTunes U workflow. You can see that's subscribable from an RSS feed. So I can take this content anywhere, record it, upload it through the 3G network or Wi-Fi network, and then have the university subscribe to it and put that content into our podcast producer workflow, we'll talk about in a second. And as we move on, all the GPS coordinates of the photograph are mapped on Google Maps and tagged with the audio as well. So imagine a scenario where students are going out in the field doing data research. With an iPod Touch and this data, they can capture it, share it. It can be streamed exactly as the University of Lyon were doing and putting all that content available. So we think this device allows you to take the power of podcasting in a passive manner and create content on the go. And it's not just us that's doing this. So I'd like to share with you an example now from Oxford University over in England.
Oxford University is the oldest university in the Western-speaking world. It regularly tops or comes second in the World University rankings. If we consider the scale of Oxford, there are 39 colleges, 150 departments, there are hundreds of lectures go on every week.
It would be excellent if we could take at least some of that material and get it into a form that people can use and reuse easily, especially given the very diverse nature of the university.
We've got the opportunity here to make use of all the kind of wonderful things we've got at Oxford University, and hopefully technology can play a role in that.
What we're excited about is the fact that Podcast Producer and Oxford University are coming together at just the right time. Pretty much all of our teaching is what you might call research-based, in that we ask our students to go away and research a topic and then present on it. So the key thing is to get them access to the resources, and increasingly resources are online. We have a very open view of learning. We try and provide all the content to all the students. Podcasting provides us an alternative route to get the material to the students.
So I'm hoping that Steve has shown you that, yes, podcasting can be, I think, a bit passive if one's just a consumer. But a more constructivist approach, of course, is to get students to create content. We've seen Audio Boo. There are piles of applications that will certainly allow the student to create content. And we're seeing that at various universities. We'll look at some student work in a moment. This product, Podcast Producer, is being used locally here at the University of Waikato across the ditch. Now, it's doing all of the grunt work of the transition we're about to see, and importantly, the encoding. In other words, it will automatically save it to go to iPhone, an other phone that copes with video, a website, a wiki site, a blog site. Essentially, whatever it's set up to do, it will automatically do. So like Lectopia, which is used by most Australian universities, it's a very powerful application for automating the process. How to see these videos, of course, is iTunes. You've already shown me with the first question we've had that over 90% of you are using iTunes software. Well, the very same software you're using on your PC or your Mac to listen to Rachmaninoff, Satie, the Arctic Monkeys, or Miles Davis, you use to look at this content. 12 months ago, next month, 7 universities in Australia and New Zealand joined the iTunes U family. And their experience is worth sharing with you. It's certainly growing. One of the first 7 was Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne. I asked Lisa Germany to share with you, via a podcast, how much that site is being used and some of the feedback.
Swinburne Podcasts. How is Swinburne doing? Well, right off the bat, from launch, we had 1 podcast up in the iTunes U Top 20 for about the first 7 months. And that was our introduction to Photoshop, which was a design tutorial. We often have our podcasts featured by Apple in both the iTunes U landing page and also the landing pages for the subcategories within iTunes U. Our stats, we have between about 7,000 and 17,000 downloads of our content each week, and that's spread across all of our content. And we're at the position now where we have enough visibility, because we haven't actually done a lot of advertising yet, but we have enough visibility and people are becoming more aware of the initiative that staff are actually approaching us to start to contribute stuff. So rather than us going out and begging them to do stuff for us, they're actually coming to us with ideas, which is fantastic.
And this is the challenge, I think, for universities who've joined on, not just using the Lectopia automated lectures, which are of limited experience, but to get staff and students to contribute. In Brisbane, Griffith University is the only university who's jumped on the iTunes U bandwagon, but I can tell you the other guys are not far behind. I think the real challenge is if you're an academic staff member at Griffith, you should be looking at how to get your content on board. Currently, there are 13 universities who are working on their site. We'll see another Melbourne university pop online within the next month. 10 universities have applied, but they're basically working on their paperwork. Their legal offices has got, and 9 universities in Australia and New Zealand are up and going. Now, one of the other universities that is working there is UNSW. University of New South Wales had a huge investment in UNSW TV about 2 years ago. And they're producing content, digital learning objects, digital assets, for not only iTunes U, but YouTube, and indeed their own internal land-based television station, UNSW TV. So they've spent a lot of effort there. I'd like to share some of their experience, and this is a video they've produced for their own staff. There are a couple of good take-homes there, and I'll discuss them after, but let's hear from UNSW.
iTunes U suits the academic who wants a choice between private and public spaces for storing content. You can upload a range of digital media types, such as video, audio, and PDFs. Once people subscribe, the material will automatically appear. It can then be downloaded to an iPod or laptop. Content is pushed to you, unlike YouTube, where you have to seek it out. This has great potential for collaborative research or communicating with alumni. There's a sliding scale of access. Some material can be open to the community, some open to a particular faculty, some material can be just for a particular course cohort. iTunes U offers better quality imagery and the advantage of mobility. So if your course content involves intricate detail, this is definitely the option for you.
So the real take-homes there are the quality, but also the technology behind it. Techies in the audience will be all aware of RSS feeds. It basically means you subscribe to, let's say, Neuroanatomy 101. Next time your lecturer puts something up there, it will automatically download. Number 2 that they brought to play was essentially mobility. So YouTube's great, but when I plug my iPhone or iPod into my system, it won't automatically sync, if I've subscribed to it, the latest podcasts that have come down. So that's another big difference. One thing they also brought out was the difference between a public site and a private. Public, anyone can see. Private, you must authenticate to based on university security. So in other words, the students log in however they log in for that university. And only then can they see their subjects or whatever subjects the university allows them to have. So it's really that quality. And it's played out. Patrick Stoddard is the UNSW TV guru, and he's told me that one lecture by one of their comp sci folks, just as an example, has been downloaded a couple of 100 times on YouTube. It's been downloaded a couple of 1,000 times on iTunes U. So the students are going for it because they're already using iTunes. Pretty simple stuff. Now, a private site's already up and going. You can't see it because only medical students at Sydney University can see it. They basically jump in to it via their own authentication, and they would have the lectures that are available to them. This is their homegrown learning management system, or LMS. The students click on a lecture of interest. That LMS authenticates them and opens up iTunes U and takes them to their lecture. In this case, this is a Lectopia lecture that's just automatically downloaded. Now, most of you, however, don't have homegrown learning management systems. Most of you are probably Blackboard users. Very same thing happens. There's a building block or 2, in fact 8 at last count, to work with iTunes U and Blackboard. I'd like to hear from Cindy from Vanderbilt University. They've built their own, and let's hear their experience.
Well, we're finding an increasing number of faculty wanting to use multimedia in their classes. Everything from capturing their lectures to a multimedia presentation that they put together for their students. We tried a number of solutions, but each had its own challenge. We didn't have an easy way to upload that. We didn't have an easy way for students to get to that content. When we looked at iTunes U, we saw an efficient way to do this.
The first thing we had to figure out was a way to tie it to our courses so that the faculty could use it and use it easily so that a particular student could be authenticated and verified. We worked with a group here on campus who actually put together a building block to work with our courseware program.
We passed authentication and course roll from Blackboard to iTunes U. When we pass it over to iTunes, iTunes only knows if that person that's viewing that content is a student or an instructor.
So in other words, the authentication, in other words, is handled by the university, in this case Blackboard. So just a quick snapshot of those of you who haven't seen public sites. Here's Griffith's website. One way to get to it is just to go to Griffith's site. It will take you to, as we can see here, open the Griffith sites on iTunes U. University of Otago, same deal. Or you can go to iTunes, the iTunes Music Store, and iTunes U. And this is the portal that will basically take you to all of the universities that are out there. If you have iTunes, you've already got the ability to do this. Now, the types of data that can be stored range from, in this case, Swinburne, PDFs. So you can put PDFs up there. UNSW, we've already heard, has a great investment in video. I'd like to show you a snippet of their most popular download at the moment, the Comp Sci introductory course. And I love the self-actualization of this chap when he introduces his course.
Timetable.
Or not. No, couldn't be bothered. Basically, it's a great little story where he talks about the students being elsewhere, and they'll soon work it out because attractive and well-dressed commerce students will walk in, so they'll work out the wrong lecture. Our friends at UNSW also have piles of physics stuff up, which is quite interesting, odds and sods.
We're going to show you an example of a collision. The weight of this brick is 180 newtons. It's not small, but it's negligible compared to the large forces between the hammer and the brick.
And he's not the only physics prof who's worked out that students like these sorts of practical examples. Prof. Lewin at MIT is actually is a cult figure and has a following of folks, and he does crazy stuff like that 15-kilo pendulum. He'll stand within millimeters of it, trusting the science and ensuring that he doesn't need faciomaxillary surgery if it goes wrong. Griffith done great stuff, and this conservatorium students are contributing work, much like an e-portfolio. The Muso students are putting up their own work. This is an MP3, so basically with just an image at the beginning. Otago doing the same stuff, and I actually like this piece of music. It's kind of the next Mussy Higgins. Nice quality, student-created work, much more of a constructivist approach, not very passive. They do all the work themselves. Just let her sing a bar.
What will you give me?
That'll do it. Our friends at Oxford doing some really great work, and if you're lucky enough to have alumni like Michael Palin, why the hell wouldn't you use them as a marketing gesture? The obligatory Radcliffe camera shot.
This is Brasenose College, Oxford. I was an undergraduate here from 1962 to 1965.
And he goes on to tell us that that's where he met some funny fellows who joined him in a new TV show.